بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا، وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. لله تبارك وتعالى. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. I praise Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. I thank Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, and I ask him to raise the rank and the status of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all those who follow them in excellence until the day of judgment. And I ask Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala to grant us the sincere intention. Insha'Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, I wanted to briefly do my reflection on last night's Black Imam Roundtable. I usually try to do it in the morning, but this morning the situation was not facilitated for me. So alhamdulillah, I figured I'd take some time tonight to do my reflections and my recap on some of the things that I had in my mind that oftentimes, because of the time on the roundtable, we don't get to expand on them. So I take this opportunity to expand on some of the thoughts that were mentioned and conveyed on the Black Imams Roundtable. And the title was about building and sustaining community life. So usually after the roundtable, you get a chance to think about all that was said, listen to the comments. You have a lot of things going on the roundtable. So after having a chance to process it, you can come add some additional things that you may have missed or you think is a benefit. But when we talk about building and sustaining community life and a community, a verse that we mentioned on the roundtable comes to my mind immediately, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. And hold on, cling to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which can be understood is the Quran and the Sunnah and the sacred law of Islam, to hold on to that all together and never separate. And we often talk about coming together and working together and cooperating, but sometimes we fail to figure out the how. Like, how do we come together? How do we work together, cooperating? Cooperate in a similar objective. So I thought about that. And quoting the Quran and the Sunnah without understanding sometimes the details related to legal rulings on those verses and those hadith that are quoted can lead to a lot of misunderstandings. So if we're going to cling and stick to the book and the Sunnah, Al-Quran and the Sunnah of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we have to know how. And that how is extremely important because we live in a time where religious scholarship and religious learning is not given its due level of respect among the general community, unfortunately. So everyone, because of certain modern innovations in approaching the Islamic knowledge, would believe that they are capable of deducing Islamic judgments, legal rulings, without any training whatsoever. You know, you often hear, especially on social media, even in the community, because social media is a reflection of what's going on in the communities oftentimes. The person has not studied anywhere with anyone for any amount of time, but they have a judgment. I'm going to tell you the religious rule. And there is an old saying that's common: the one who does not have a thing cannot give it. But we find oftentimes people don't have it and they still giving what they don't have. And this is in talking about the understanding of the religion to even come together. I think that's extremely important, that we all, to the best of our ability, adhere to the saying of Imam al-Bukhari in the book of knowledge in his Sahih, where he said, al-ilmu qabla al-qawli wal-amal. The knowledge must precede every statement and action. So to build a good community, a strong community, that community must be built on al-ilm al-shar'i, the religious knowledge. And Imam Naim, may Allah protect him, he mentioned that when he said that if we're not learning, we can forget about building anything. Because when there is no learning, then what the people would be functioning on is their own desire and opinion. How I think it should be. Not how it should be, how I think it should be. And the basis of that thought process is my own desire. It is not based in the religious ruling, because the person didn't learn the religious rules. I was thinking about that last night deeply, because sometimes I watch the comments, and I know the people, some of them, and I say to myself, you don't learn. How can you be in this discussion and you don't learn at all? You've never sat through a whole entire book ever in religious judgments. How do you? You should be listening, not talking. I notice that sometimes. So one of the things, if we want to build good communities, is we have to have a commitment in our communities to learn the religion. Because that community that we want to build and we want to sustain is an Islamic community which means there has to be Islamic knowledge. And I want to kind of stick to that a little bit because it's very important. In order to acquire Islamic knowledge, there needs to be a methodology. There needs to be a methodology. And that methodology needs to be followed. So both for the leadership and the congregation, the followers, everyone needs to have recourse to the proper knowledge of the sacred law. That's like a condition for building. So there needs to be a heavy emphasis on acquiring the religious knowledge. This doesn't mean that everyone is going to be scholarly. That's not what is intended, nor is that sought after, nor is it practical. But there is a certain portion of the knowledge that everyone must know, which is indicated in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he said, "Talibul ilmi faridatun ala kulli Muslim," that seeking the knowledge of the religion is an obligation on every Muslim. That's male and female. So there's a certain portion of the knowledge that we all know. And then there is a portion that some of us must know, because actually building community is going to take in consideration of all aspects of life. And for every aspect, there is a religious judgment. Every aspect of life, there's a religious judgment. So they're going to have to be in that community some people who went beyond the personal obligatory knowledge that they need to know to go into that knowledge, which is a communal obligation, right? So someone needs to actually cover all the rules of the sacred law and understanding it. That's very important. Like all the knowledge of the sacred law. And I was talking to some of the other imams and some of our teachers who have really spent time studying, and we were talking about having within our own communities a body of learned individuals who do detailed research in the sacred law for the various issues that we confront in our communities. And they're specifically looking at them from our context, which is very important, because sometimes, even though we're online and we're talking general to everybody, but in reality, we're really talking specifically to our own communities, right? And each of us know our communities, right? All the imams, they know their own community and what goes on and what is really needed. And they see it from many angles because they live in it. So practical experience is necessary to help the one who's just researching for rulings and judgments and knowledge of the religion to apply practically. You need some experience in the actual what's going on, because they say, the scholars, that whoever judges a people without knowledge of their circumstances and conditions is a criminal. So, you got to see all aspects of it. So there is a base level of knowledge, and then there is a communal level that we all need to have and we must establish. So in building a community, I want us to say the first thing is knowledge of the sacred law. Then once we have knowledge of the sacred law, and that's established and that is normalized, we need people who have expertise in various worldly sciences and occupations. So just as we need that skilled person in the knowledge of the sacred law, we also need that skilled person in different fields of study or worldly endeavors in terms of business and education or even medicine, you know, the skilled tradesmen. We need all of that. And we should look for people who have expertise in those areas. One of the struggles in a lot of our communities is because we rely too heavily on volunteers, we don't get skilled people. And there needs to be a change in that, where we're looking in our communities for those who are the most talented in their area of expertise within the community. It's extremely important to have people who know what they're doing, because that's a part of excellence, which the Prophet ﷺ mentioned when he said, Inna Allah kataba ala kulli shay'in ihsana, that Allah tabarak wa ta'ala ordained that everything is done with excellence. So there needs to be this sense of, yo, bring me the best. And when you don't have that mindset, you start to settle for mediocrity, right? And that becomes the norm, right? It doesn't matter how well we're doing it. It was just, so this is another aspect. And religiously, that is important, that we strive for excellence within our capabilities. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, that the human being gets nothing except what he strives for. And sometimes we have to be able to say when we're not qualified for a certain position. Know that ourselves, not because someone tell us. Like, know your skill sets, right? Know what you can do and offer what you really are good at to the community, and step back sometimes when you're not the best one for that. And admit it. Listen, I'm not good at that, but I can do this. And this is what my skill set I bring to the table. And then allow the community and assist the community to find the best suited that is available for the needs of the community. So that's the knowledge-based part. Then there is the aspect of leadership, and my word, followership, that I like. We really need to get that together. Most of the African American communities, if you took a poll, you would notice that they have an imam who's usually running the community and advisory boards that assist the imam. But the one who's usually running the community is the imam. And that's been in our community for decades, in the African American community. Usually, you'll find that the imam is leader of the community. And he has this advisory board that assists him making decisions and helps him. And this is different from the immigrant model. Many of the immigrant models are business people or professionals who pay for the masjid. Usually they're the main supporters and donors, and they make up the board. And the imam is a hired employee. So the imam reports to the board. Whereas in the African American community, it's opposite. The board reports to the imam. And this is just the norm if you pay attention. So our model is not the model of others, right? Our model is really a model of leadership. So we got to realize our model and how do we improve the excellence of our model, not try to replace it with a model that is really not suitable for our context. Because in our communities, we don't have, on average, there's always exception. And let me say this to you when I'm talking about these things. These are not hard, solid, written rules for every single community. We're talking about the average or even the majority. And there's always exceptions, right? And those exceptions need to be examined and need to be studied. But the general rule is if you go into the average African American masjid, the imam is the one who's leading the community. And he's not usually paid like a livable wage, right? He's usually doing that from volunteer aspect, and often he's the one spending on the community. He's the one that is usually spending a great share of the money or doing things to earn the great share of the money that supports that community. So it's a lot heavy top from the imam side and support from the followers, from the general congregation. So that model, we have to learn how to perfect it, because it is probably going to be our model for the next coming generations. Because to get the other model, there's many other issues that are needed that are not really available at this stage in the African American community. And that's just something we have to realize, right? So one of the things that we need to improve is we need all of us, the leaders and the followers, need to become what we want to see. This is something you should concentrate on. All of us need to become what we want to see. So if as a leader, we want to see a hardworking community, people in it, you need to be hardworking. You need to be carrying bricks yourself, like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did during the battle of the trench. He carried bricks. You need to carry bricks. You're not one who is waiting for someone else to do the work. You'll do it, and everyone else that does it is an additional help. But you yourself need to be a hard worker as a leader. Likewise, as the follower, you need to work as if you were the leader. Well, I'm not assuming that you are the leader, but in your work ethic, it is as if you were responsible. And in our communities, we need to really, really concentrate on that, right? So the leader should say, listen, I work, I put it in, and it's a standard of work ethic that I demand from you because I do it. And the followers should have the same response towards your imam. You see how hard we working? We need you to work that hard. Not the way we find it a lot, where the imam is working his tail off, or the advisory board are working their tail off, and the rest of the people are relaxing and complaining about the leadership and the board. No, 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 no. If everyone develops a work ethic to move the masjid forward, and it's a standard, you'll find that community will be built and it will be sustained because you have a concentrated effort of excellence, of diligence, of commitment, of dedication, right? And that's very important. What would aid that? And I don't know where we got, and I've been trying to figure this one out. I have my reasons, but it's kind of too harsh, so I don't like to talk about how I really think about the issue. So it needs more research so I can find, even if that's the conclusion, I can find a softer way to say it. We need an understanding collectively of our mission in our communities. There are far too many people in the community who are not down. They're there, but they're not down. That's become normal in our communities. That there are more people who are not down with the mission than there are people who are down with the mission. And you wonder why sometimes you struggle to fulfill your mission. You surround around a bunch of people who are not on your mission. Very important. And that mission, as we talked about last night, needs to be clear, definitive, and non-negotiable because of the people we're dealing with. Like non-negotiable. Our mission must be accomplished. There's no negotiating it. So it needs to be thought out. It needs to be practical, and then it needs to be definitive, right? And as I mentioned yesterday, you have to accept some people just not down, right? And they don't want to be down. And you have to accept that while not letting their lack of commitment and lack of vision to see the mission get in the way of the mission. And yesterday, I quoted that Imam when he was talking about losing those 40 families in his community and how he described them. It may have been harsh, but if you get behind the harsh words and get to the point where he was saying those 40 families, he couldn't count on them. And in fact, they were hindering him from actually reaching the objective of the masjid because they wanted to take the masjid somewhere else. They want to do something else. They don't want to do the direction of the leadership of the masjid. So sometimes, as I mentioned, you got to be willing to lose in order to win. You got to be willing to lose in order to win. So some people, it's better for the collective mission that they're not in the way. Because there's another element to that, having people around who are not down. And everyone knows what I mean when I say down, right? These are people who are committed. When you have people in your midst, in your community, who are not down with the mission of your community, they are elements that weaken the resolve of others. When you have in your community people who are not down with the mission of the community, in line with the leadership of the community, those same people serve as a means of weakening the resolve of others, right? So you got to be careful with it. And usually those people are the ones who are always trying to undermine and cause division inside your ranks. So as Imam Naim always says, gotta watch them jokers. Gotta watch them jokers. And we studied the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He dealt with that element. And I'm not saying the people that are there like that are at this level, but the Prophet had al-munafiqun. He had hypocrites. They prayed, they came to the masjid, and there's a whole chapter in the Quran called Surah al-Munafiqun, the Surah al-Munafiqeen, the surah of the hypocrites. They were trying to, from within, destroy. So that mentality, I'm not talking about the faith aspect of it, the mentality of the munafiq, I call the smiling knife. They're in the community, they're smiling, they're there, but they're really trying to hurt. And the community must be aware of that element if it is to be successful. So that collective mission must be understood, and people must be committed to it and dedicated to it, right? That's the second point that's connected to good followers and good leaders and all of those things. A collective understanding of the mission. So the community must have a mission, which involves both religious aspect and the worldly aspect to make sure you can sustain community life. Because face it, especially in America, you need resources, not just religious knowledge and practice, but you also need resources for life. And when we all on the same mission, it's easy to bring those elements together, right? As an imam, I know that in our masjid, the most diligent supporters are the ones who believe in what we're doing. Not in a general man, like we Muslim. No, 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 no. Exactly what y'all trying to do, that 3-4-5-3 mission you got going on, the knowledge of Ahl-Sunnati wal Jama'ah, the community work you're trying to do, all of that stuff, we with it. These are the most diligent supporters that we have in the masjid. These are the people, whenever we have a project, they with us. Financially, physically, spiritually, by dua, they're committed, whatever we do. That's the kind of people you need. And that's my third aspect, is that those people, they have a willingness to make an individual sacrifice for the collective benefit. They have the willingness to make an individual sacrifice for the collective benefit. They see the mission of the community even above their self, right? And Allah mentioned those type of people, they prefer others over themselves, even if their lot be poverty. That was the companions at that high level. But that spirit of sacrifice for the collective benefit needs to be in those people, right? And that spirit is the collective is more important than the needs of the individual. And the individual understands that. Like, if we all not winning, even if I'm successful, I'm not winning. We need to have the mindset that we must win. And we are reflected by our community. That mentality must be there. The fourth point that I want to mention, I only have 5, is sticking to a community. And they talked about it last night, community hoppers. No. We need to have a community that we consider ourselves a dedicated member of that community. This is my community, and I'm with it. And whenever I'm working with other communities, I'm representing my community. So there's alliances developing, but I'm with this community, right? So no matter where we go, what we do, I'm a part of this jama'ah. This jama'ah, this is my community. That's my imam. That's my leader. That's my sheikh. And that's who I'm down with. However, we have working relationships with other communities, and we support and we do that. But my community is this community. And I'm responsible for ensuring that this community is sustained and it progresses. That's a commitment to me because it's my community. And we should not have a acceptance of floaters. Like, who you belong to, what community? Oh, I go everywhere. All right. We need to fix that for you. You need to belong to a community. You need to find someone that you are willing to follow. Because for our collective good, we need leadership and followership. And if you ain't committed to nowhere, then you're not a follower and nor a leader, and you're going to be quite a problem in our communities. At minimum, you're going to hinder our progress because no one can count on you, right? No community can count on you because you go to every community. Now, we need you to be committed somewhere. And even if you're not committed because in your locality, you don't find the proper Sunni, Ahl Sunnah knowledge, then you need to be connected either online or however with some leadership. You need to declare that you follow somebody, somewhere, some leadership. This is extremely important. It's extremely important for building community. There needs to be community. And each community needs to cooperate with other communities with similar objectives and missions. And that's a collective unity of communities. But on the individual level, we all got to belong to a community. That's very important. And that community needs to be able to count on us for whatever it needs to be sustained and to develop. Lastly, and this is something that's above the level of the followers, at the level of the leaders, especially in the Black Muslim community, the African American Muslim community, We need to develop a national Black Imams Council. This is a project I'm working on. And so I said, why you need a Black Imams Council? To address the Black community's issues. That's why. We don't need to rely on others to do what we should do for ourselves. That's not division. That's not separating the ummah. That's strengthening a portion of the ummah so that ultimately they can be active contributors to the upliftment of the whole ummah. So it needs to be a concentrated effort that's intentional. Because Black imams, African American imams, and that's what I mean when I say Black imams, I mean African Americans, descended of captives that came from Africa, that landed in the shores of America and were born and raised here, usually in the inner cities. That's what I'm talking about. Those imams need a national council that has a research department, has the ability to solve disputes within communities. Like, so you have the individual community with the imam, and that imam is a part of that national council. So that whenever there are challenges, there's another body that strengthens and supports the local communities. And that needs to be all who understand what we're doing. And we have people that's already lined up for that, but that's needed because a lot of times our communities on the local level don't have enough dedicated people to accomplish all of the mission. So they're going to need allies that strengthen them. And that is so important. So those are some of the points that I was reflecting on about the roundtable. And I would hope that each of you, when y'all listen to these roundtables, y'all jotting down and, thinking about it, like seriously, like how do we actually do these things, right? How do we make communities throughout the country that are sustained, that are really progressive and accomplishing things? That's something we need to think about. And I highly appreciate masjid everywhere. Imam Fahim, you crazy. I really appreciate y'all engagement. Y'all don't know, maybe you do, how much y'all mean to the work we're doing. I know our communities, Imam Naeem and Imam Fahim and myself, we are strengthened by y'all, even at the local level, right? We're able to do what we do because we have y'all. So y'all have shown for years a sense of commitment and dedication to our collective mission. And I'm telling you, I highly appreciate y'all. Some people think y'all strangers. Actually, y'all are closer than some people who's with us every day. Some people think y'all strangers, but in reality, some of y'all are closer to us than people who are around us every single day. We can count on you more than the guy who, or brother or sister, who's around us every day sometimes. They say in our spirituality, and at tasawwuf, they say oftentimes the one who is near is distant and the one who is distant is near. Wow. Oftentimes, the one who is near is distant, and the one who is distant is near. And I see many of you like that. Even though we are separated by thousands of miles or hundreds of miles, and we only meet online except when we have gatherings, but at the heart level, we're together every day. We're connected. We're working on the mission. And that's what you saw when Imam Naim and Imam Fahim went to New Mexico. And that's what the Imams felt there. And that community felt that even though you way out in New Mexico, but you have a family on the East Coast that loves and cares about you and want to support your work. So even though you may be having your own challenges and obstacles, you have people who are praying for you, who are wishing well for you, who are thinking about you. And that's all around the country. You know, uh, and by the way, uh, our brothers and sisters in New Mexico, I will, inshallah, be coming out. My flight was canceled with no explanation until hours later. So I didn't make it. I was at the airport. I have the tapes. I have the video. I was waiting and they canceled the flight. So alhamdulillah, mashallah who can. So inshallah, I will come out. Again, I still have, the ticket far as, and may Allah, we'll make another program to come out and maybe we'll go over a whole book or something, inshallah. Since they came, so inshallah, we'll still try to make that trip. But anyway, there's a saying, and this was my feeling with you: the one who attends with their body and not their heart, their body is present, but the heart is absent, they are absent. And whoever attends with their heart, but their body is absent, they are present. So even though I wasn't physically in New Mexico, my heart was with you, and therefore I was with you. And I hope we are like that all together. No matter where we are in distance, our hearts are united and we're together. So we're always together and we're always sharing, because the real connection is the connection of the hearts, not just bodies. And the pious, they said, so long as you're in the heart of the people of Allah, you are with them. So if we keep each other in the heart and we have that heart connection, we're good. So those are my points. Learning. And that's more important than everything after. We have to learn our religion. That's the most important thing. We have to learn our religion. Without that, nothing else will matter. Even if outwardly it looks like successful, if the knowledge is missing and the practice of that knowledge is also a part of the knowledge, if that's missing, everything else doesn't really matter. It's like a mirage. It's not really there. So the knowledge, then being good leaders and good followers, diligent, dedicated, committed leaders and followers. Listen, some people, they consider me harsh. I don't know how they get that, but no mind, they consider me harsh because I don't accept slackers. I don't. I have no tolerance for a slacker. Zero. That doesn't mean I can't be patient with you, but I'm never going to accept it. I'm going to push you. I'm going to push you. I do that for myself. And my teachers do that for me. We cannot afford to be slackers. It doesn't work. It can never become an acceptable practice that you are a slacker. No, it doesn't work. You have to put it in for years till you die. That's how you have to be. And you can't cry about you tired. Not for what we're trying to do. Allah told us in the Quran, وَعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينُ. Worship your Lord. That's an active thing until death comes to you. That's the finish line when we dead. And you need to work as hard as you can until you die. Not just the imam, not just the board, all of us within our capacity. And we all know our capacity. We know what we can do and we know what we can't. We know when we're sacrificing and we know when we're faking it. We all know that. At least the vast majority of us know that. You know when you're giving 20% as opposed to when you're giving 80, 90%, 100%. And I'm talking about of yourself. You know, Allah told us this in the Quran. إنما المؤمنون الذين جاهدوا بأموالهم وأنفسهم في سبيل الله. Excuse me. إنما المؤمنون الذين آمنوا بالله ورسوله ثم لم يرتابوا وجاهدوا بأموالهم وأنفسهم في سبيل الله. I left a part of the verse. Mine going faster than my tongue. Right? Verily, the real believers are those who believe in Allah and His Messenger and thereafter never doubt. And they struggle and strive with their wealth and themselves in the path of Allah. That's how we have to be. And we have to call ourselves to account. You know you faking jacks. You know you ain't putting it in. You have to step it up. We need soldiers. We need people who are soldiers in the path of Allah. We are in the service of this deen until we die. That's your spirit. Everyone needs that spirit. Then being on the mission, understanding the mission and being committed. It's in your heart. We Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. We follow our madhahib. We follow those methodologies. We're on it. That's what we do. And we're trying to build our community. And that's not easy. I want to tell you something about this. I got to get ready to go. But do y'all know Malcolm X, Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz died broke, struggling, and lost his community? Do y'all know that? Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, died broke, worked, and lost his community. That's a study. We always talk about, because after someone's death, you're going to make them a martyr. I can imagine, that guy you hated, because in his time, he was hated. They didn't like him at all. He wasn't loved. And he wasn't supported. He was rejected. Now they made him a martyr, and, everyone, Malcolm inspired me. When Malcolm was alive, when Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, he was in struggle, in serious struggle. Read the books about his life. Read 1965, from January to May. Read his life. Read his letters. Man, he was in some serious struggle because he didn't have those kind of people we're talking about. And soon as he died, Everything he was working for within a year or two was gone. Done. Finished. And that's why we only talk about him, not the continuation of his work, because the work got stopped with him. That's why you don't have him communities. All the things he was trying to do, he didn't have dedicated people behind him to continue it. We can't make that same mistake. While we honor him, rahimahullah ta'ala, and we celebrate his life, but we got to learn from his struggle. And we got to ensure that we're committed, that our Malcolms who are living today, we don't do the same thing. Because we have Malcolms every day in our community. In all of our communities around the country, there are some Malcolm X's, but they just not supported. And they could do amazing things if they had the proper support. So we got to be that proper support. And when we talk about establishing that council, when you get a bunch of leaders together, that individual, among other leaders, he will, like cream, will come to the top. And that will be the person we look at collectively. And we need to start looking like that. Stop being so individualistic that none of us can follow. Even the imams may need an imam among us that we all follow. That we're willing to defer to, right? And we're willing to support. That's very important. And he don't have to be the best of us in every aspect. He might have the quality that makes him fit to be a leader among leaders. And those other leaders use their exceptional skill sets to strengthen to tie, the loose ends where as the leader he may not have. But so the leader even have to be a good follower. So these are just my thoughts of the round table. My hand is in with yours, and I hope your hand is in with mine. We have a lot of work to do, right? And trust me, especially with the imams on the round table, all of us are in intense struggle. If you could see our daily battles, it's not easy, not at all, right? We deal with a lot of struggle. It is a 24-hour, 7 days a week, 365 days a year of work, whether it's physical, mental, even the spiritual toll that comes on when you run in these communities. And it's easy when you ain't under the gun, when you ain't responsible, when you're not accountable. But our imams, they're responsible, they're accountable. When no one else does it, they have to do it. When everyone else says, I'm tired, they have to keep going. When everyone else say, I'm broke, I don't got it, they got to find it. So for all of us, have a little more dignity in yourself by respecting your own leadership. And if you see deficiencies in your leadership, put the mirror, because that's a reflection of you. Because as we learn during this presidential election, you get who you are. You get who you are. Sometimes we don't realize that. So when you want to complain about your leader, look at yourself and ask yourself, why did Allah put these leaders over top of me? Think about that. So as you want improvement in your leadership, make some improvement in yourself too. Very important. And lastly, in closing out, I promise is the last, please make dua for the wives of these imams and the families of these imams. Because yeah, the imam makes a sacrifice, but the sacrifice their families make, their wives make, so that you could have your leader, your imam, those women need to be honored. Those children need to be honored because they're sacrificing their family for the collective, you know? And you can imagine that sacrifice that those women make so you can have the imam, so you can have your sheikh, so you can have the sacrifice those families make. You would never, 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 never imagine. So please make dua for the family of these imams, right? While you praying for the imam, make sure you add their families, you know, because they're like unsung heroes in the struggle, you know, and we need to sometimes give them their flowers, right? Subhanallah. May Allah reward them immensely for all their struggles. And may Allah make them among the pious people who have the highest ranks in the hereafter. بجاه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. بارك الله فيكم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. May Allah reward you all. Inshallah, we'll see you tomorrow morning at 7:15, and we'll continue in our reading of the book Al-Maqasid, inshallah. Barakallahu fikum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.